happening.
It seems like it's a lot happening in this UK universe. Every time we turn around, it's a soap opera. Days of our lives. It's a new drama around every corner.
I'll be interested to see how it all plays out. I'm not indicting anyone, but I'll be interested to see how it all plays out. See, maybe there's some master plans. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts.
Figure out where the wind's going to take us. Guys, Jake, good to see you. Newt, good to see you tonight. Welcome back to the LetterWinner Pod. We got a stacked deck tonight. Morgan Newton back in that co-pilot chair again tonight. Newt, I might get this thing up to 20,000 and turn it over to you and Jake. See if I can find me some spirits and talk a little ball. Jake, good to have you back on the show with us. March Madness in full swing, down to the Final Four. UK out way too early, round of 32. Questions everywhere. Coaching staff shake up. Mo Williams and Mason Williams have officially entered the building. Football, spring practice is upon us. Spring game, April 18th. A lot of buzz, a lot of highlights coming out of spring ball. Kenny Minchey. Thread net football, and there's proof, and it ain't AI. New technology. Seeing the GoPros on the front of the helmets, seeing the new Jugs machine, some robot technology, putting the ball in different places for the wide receivers, running the full route tree. See, I got Will Stein talking with the headset. Music goes down and he pops up. So new technology, new fronts, new energy. We got a lot to break down tonight, the good, the bad. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Kentucky finishes this season 22-14, 10-8, 7th in the SEC, knocked out in the round of 32. Is this the season that we thought it would be after seeing this team through the first few games of the season?
Me personally, yeah. Once you saw that they didn't have ball handling, the ball doesn't move very well. When they did play well, the ball moved, but you're moving a two guard to the point guard position. Aberdeen did a pretty good job with that, but the ball got stuck too much. It didn't move. It became a two-man game to Aberdeen and Owe, and when they can shut those two people down or they have an off shooting night, it turned out to be kind of what it was. Pope still could coach in a big game. He played well against Tennessee. You saw him do well. He gave decent efforts against Florida a couple times, but at the end of the day, the talent construction was rough and was not built for the long haul. And that's 2 years in a row. Not enough point guards. Ball handling is everything when it comes to March. And he's going to have to really lean on his new hire, Mo Williams, to see what they can do to get some ball handling into the game. Who stays? Who goes? We already got Lowe out as rumored to enter the transfer portal. So what happens with Moreno and all the guys? Pope's in for a really tough one. When you're the hometown hero, quote unquote, 96 national championship team, one of the best teams to ever play, things rise up. We played for a guy that played for the university, and there's a little extra pressure, right? And both following Hall of Fame coaches. It's hard to do and hard to live up to a standard and all that. So it sucks because I like when we do well, but man, it was a rough season to watch. Very frustrating. Soapbox.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
No, man. No, it was a good scene setter.
There's a lot. This was a really rough season. And I think when you're in kind of a small market like Lexington, although UK is a global brand, the media is very small market in how it's covered. It's really easy to gloss over the record of 22-14. My exposure to Kentucky basketball started with John Calipari, and he was winning 35 plus games. I mean, that was my first exposure to Kentucky basketball. And then for a few years after that, it was almost always 30 plus wins. I think the challenge about a season like this, and we've talked about it a few times on this podcast and in different circles, is how do you get back to winning 30, 32, 34, 35 games? And when does it become acceptable to lose 10 games in a season at the University of Kentucky? No one wants to be negative. I don't think that's anybody's intention to be pessimistic. The University of Kentucky can't lose that many basketball games. There's too much investment. There's too many people that care about it. There's too much history. It is a resource-rich program that has almost any resource available to it. Oh, and by the way, you play in front of 20-plus thousand fans in your home games. You're very rarely going to be in a disadvantage in a neutral site game from a fan base perspective. The people care a lot about national and the SEC tournament. So I think losing that many games is just inexcusable for Kentucky basketball. And it's not being negative or pessimistic. It's just saying Kentucky basketball should never lose that many games. And the problem is it's starting to happen often. I can't remember the last time Kentucky was truly a threat to win a national title, which you always talk about trying to go and win the 9th national title. I can't remember the last time Kentucky had a team that was a real threat to do that in basketball.
2020.
It's been a while. I just think it's inexcusable. This has nothing to do with any opinion of Mark Pope. I personally don't think he's the guy for this position. I think we know that now. I don't really know why we're spending much more time on it. But if he is, I hope he responds in a big way. I'm cheering for him. But you just can't lose 10-plus games at the University of Kentucky.
It's just a tough situation because Mark can coach in a year like this. There was a heavy reliance on play calls to keep us set pieces to keep us in games and keep us competitive this year once some of the injury concerns took. When you didn't have a viable backup point guard, and now you got to rely on a freshman to try to fill the void once Jalen Lowe goes down, it was a nightmare. Jasper Johnson is not a facilitator. He's a better two guard than he is a one now. I'll be curious to see his impact, and if he stays with Kentucky this year, we can talk more about that. But I thought it was interesting. Mark Pope, in his last coach's show, tried to open up and communicate more. He alluded to the fact that there were things surrounding the injuries behind the scenes. It wasn't just a soft tissue injuries while guys were missing. It seemed like random things happening over the course of the season with practices that kept guys sidelined. Bad luck or some phantom injuries were the reason why some guys set out and this team wasn't able to fall into a rhythm. I thought it was interesting to hear him talk about the dynamic where when they entered the season knowing that Lowe was a lefty, and they believed that they were going to get another point guard that was also a left-handed point guard. That player did not come to Kentucky because he felt that he could potentially be buried in the bench behind Lowe and potentially Jasper Johnson. So when Lowe goes down, now you're in a situation where you realize that Jasper Johnson, he's not a candidate to be the backup point guard. And he talked about the impact of having to switch so much of the offense to become right-hand dominant. The play sets, the pick and rolls, the screens, facilitating getting the ball down onto the blocks with a left-handed point guard. I never heard a coach talk about that element. Are we buying that? Not having left-handed point guard, backup left-handed point guard, that put the coaching staff in a position to have to change the approach to how they were going to attack teams?
Your high major ball, Lowe goes out 2 games. He misses the first couple games. He goes out within the first 6. Like, I'm sorry, it's 5-on-5. Everybody's hooped for a real long time. Like, you should be able to switch that. Now, like, it's different in football. You go from a right-handed quarterback to a left-handed quarterback. That's a completely different ball game, right? But you're talking about, you're not orchestrating like set plays. You are dribbling and you're getting to the left side. Like, you should be able to orchestrate and change that on the fly. You get paid $5, $6, $7 million a year. Switch your damn offense. Like, the issue was Mark Pope wants to run zoom action. That's what he wants to run. What he found out was he has guys that have sticky fingers that don't pass the ball. It was, give me the ball, get out my damn way. How many bad shots did we see be taken all season long because people just wanted to try to go and get theirs? Where last year, Amari would dribble the ball up the court and it would go in a different direction. When Lamont was in, the ball was moving. It was hot. Like, there was just not enough of that all year. And don't give me coach speak of like, you made a left-handed offense. You got 5 guys on the court. You can fix that. Like, we switched defensive coordinators mid-year and we ran a whole different defense. It's possible. You can change. That's just such a horse crap excuse.
Yeah, you're completely right on this. Basketball players, specifically high major college basketball players, even high school point guards at this point can dribble with both hands. Just get real. You can dribble with both hands. You can start the offense on both sides of the court. You're talking about the University of Kentucky basketball. It's insulting to even hear that sort of statement. To all those that listen, to all those that follow sports and follow basketball, look, news break. If a point guard can't dribble with both hands, they don't need to be playing point guard at Kentucky. Men's basketball, women's basketball, scout team, the blue courts, Johnson Center, any kind of basketball that's being played on the University of Kentucky campus, alumni gym, Kirk Levington, it doesn't matter. You don't need to be point guard if you can't dribble with both hands.
No, here's the thing. Coach speaks a real thing. We all get that. When they get in front of the media, they're going to try to spin and spin and spin. They're going to try to spin it. He tried to spin the fact that he compared Calipari's last 2 years to these last 2 years. Bro, you had a whole new team. You had no holdover. Don't compare that. You're comparing yourself against a guy who hung a banner with All-Americans, #1 draft picks. What type of talent are you bringing here? Cal's tenure ended poorly, but that ain't the place to go start trying to compare yourself to the last 2 years of Calipari when he was the standard bearer of basketball for 7 years, right? From the time he walked on campus in 2009, when I almost hit him with my car, like, that dude was the flag bearer of college basketball, like talent, wins, all of that. It's just, he spun too much in that last radio show for me. I'm like, man, you got to go out and win. Like, that's the only thing that's going to cover up your blemishes right now.
Jeremy, I think that's part of the problem with Pope too. And I've said this to a few people that I'm connected with. I want Pope to be extremely successful. I don't have any ill will towards Pope or anything like that. I personally don't think he's the guy, but that's not me making it like a personal attack or anything like that. I just don't think it's a great fit. But I think part of the reason it's not a great fit is because transmitting messages can be a challenge for him. He's a smart guy. I think when you go to medical school and all that, he's extremely smart. I don't think anybody's doubting his intelligence, doubting his ability to come up with game plans and manage substitutions, although there's people questioning how he manages substitutions. But he's clearly capable of doing all of it. The challenge I have with him is getting his message across in a way that puts the program in a better place than it was before he tried to get his message across. I think it's a big challenge for him. And I do wonder if that's also part of the challenge on the recruiting front as well. Like, if you can't get recruits at the
That's a
University of
problem.
Kentucky, I mean, it's the University of Kentucky basketball. Everybody's talking about Mo Williams and Mo Williams is kid, but he's outside the top 100. So it's like, okay, wait, when does it become a parade? When does Kentucky start going down the path of a parade when you pick up a recruit that's out of the top 100? He's not even in the top
Not
100.
even top 50.
I think that, to me, is the biggest disconnect that I hear as somebody who lives in the shadow of the university. There's very little accountability to University of Kentucky being University of Kentucky basketball. Everybody's kind of like tiptoeing around it. You lose 14 games, no big deal. You're never winning at halftime, no big deal. That's the issue that I personally see with it. Is where are we going? Where are we going with this?
Man, I feel like talking negatively or even constructive criticism, it's almost viewed as taboo now. Like, our generation, in my opinion, we're a generation of cowards.
Soft.
And it's very possible that our generation will be skipped in terms of getting into the Oval Office. Our generation may just get completely skipped because we're afraid, like to your point, Morgan, we're afraid to criticize our alma mater. We're afraid to criticize the basketball program, the football program, like to have these conversations, to put something negative, as long as you're providing some context and putting it out there with substance.
Jeremy, that's why I'm so happy Kyle Tucker's back. I'm so happy Kyle Tucker's back because Kyle Tucker is respected enough and he's close enough to it that he can provide some of the constructive criticism that a lot of our media members just don't or won't. And we've got great media people that have been around long enough to cover the sport even when we play. They're great people, but there's very few people that will call it like it is, that are respected media members, that'll call like it is and jump in the middle of it. For whatever reason, Matt Jones and the KSR guys, they don't really get that kind of respect. They're viewed as people tearing the program down. That's part of the reason I'm happy Kyle's back. Thank God Kyle's back.
They're afraid of losing access. They're afraid of having credentials pulled. That's the society that we live in now. If you speak out against the home front, the home team, then that could affect you. That could impact your livelihood. What an awful place to be in society. And Kyle Tucker, you're absolutely right. And you and I, we were talking about him on the last episode. It's disappointing to be in a situation where we can't get informed, intelligent discussion of people providing real constructive feedback on the basketball front, but also on the football front, and providing some action items, some things that they'd like to see the program, the university implement. So it's not just, this isn't going to work. No, hey, XYZ, this is what I'm saying. This is how some other programs are doing it. Should we potentially do it this way? I think we need more of that type of dialogue than what we're getting right now.
I think two things. Morgan said something earlier. The standard of Kentucky basketball, when we think about rev share, we talked about this when I was on a couple months ago. If you're going to do 22 and 14, do you get as much money as the standard of Kentucky basketball moving forward, if that's your new standard, right? So that's one thing you got to weigh versus the traditional excellence of the program. And the other thing is, if you don't kiss the ring, you're out. And people get so butthurt about that. Money can buy you access. It shouldn't buy you influence, right? But in those moments, like when you have access, you should be able to share that access in the most appropriate ways. Just like if you have good media coverage, it should provide you access, whether it's positive or constructive. And I won't say negative, like constructive, well-written articles need to be not just like, oh, they suck. It's like, okay, they're playing bad, but here's why. And here, like, how can he shift that? It's all about framing it the right way. And I think, like you mentioned, like our generation's lost the ability to communicate appropriately. We don't sit down. We don't have philosophical conversations, whether it's sports or life. It just doesn't happen. You see that with younger generations. Gen Z is holding people accountable, whether it's different movements or different traditions that they're getting back into. The millennial group was like, you know what? We'll wash our hands with it because it's not my problem. And I'm not going to offend you or step on your toes. And that has leaked into all facets of our life. And that impacts the older generation, like the Gen Xers who are still leading the charge, to what the new generation sees, where they're like, I don't want to be these cowards. I want to be something more and something greater.
Gen Z has inspired me in the workplace as much, if not more, than my millennial cohort. Gen Z, they're not afraid. They're saying all the wrong things to HR. The things that they're saying to HR is facilitating and bringing about change in healthcare because the trends are changing. The engagement from Gen Z with some of the traditional ways and methods of running healthcare systems, poor engagement from Gen Z is forcing healthcare to evolve and change. So I'm curious to see, outside of the metrics of how much income an athletic department made, if there's going to be some metrics that are going to help an administration or help a university realize, hey, we need to change some of our business practices, or this is going to happen. So when I look at the metrics, Kentucky, this past academic year, basketball generated over $20 million in ticket sales. Kentucky basketball ticket sales may have outpaced Kentucky football ticket sales in dollar amount this past year. I did not know that. That was news to me. Is that sustainable? Going 22-14, at what point, what's the breaking point for Kentucky basketball fan base with the last 2 years of underachievement, the last 5 seasons? This started under Calipari, a guy who has the most players in the NBA, but that still didn't translate to wins, Morgan, over the last 5 years. Him having some of the best talent.
No, I'm not going to defend Calipari because at the end of the day, he doesn't need defending.
He's a grown man.
He's clearly a Hall of Fame basketball coach. He doesn't need defending. But he also almost always, whether it's through subtweet or passive aggression, has mentioned shifts and change in administration and how that could have impacted the job. And you and I, we've had jobs. We've had bosses. We've had people we've reported to. They haven't always been the same. Even the people that we report to don't stay the same. And so I think it's easy to look at the variable, Mark Pope in this case, the John Calipari in a past case, and put it all on them. And we know that's not always fair. But I think the program's got to look at itself holistically and try to identify, hey, what is the 2026 standard? Is it 22-14? Is it 25-10? Because I can tell you when I look and I watch Duke's 30-5, 32-2, 32-3. UConn is they've survived again. They're
Incredible.
They're into the third weekend again. Some of these schools have seen a lot of success lately. Kentucky hasn't seen it in basketball. It's not compared to the quote unquote standard. When we look at and we assess Mark Pope and the basketball stuff, we got to look at it through that lens. As, yeah, maybe it's a little bit better than how Cal was towards the end. But is it up to par for Kentucky basketball?
A lot of people caught the comments that Cal made in the wake of the victory over High Point, who was a really good basketball team this year. Calipari going out of his way to make it known that University of Arkansas, but also High Point University, that they have presidents and administration that he claims are directly responsible for impacting the ability to go and compete for national championships. So there's a lot of people that are trying to read through the tea leaves to ask the question, what about the Lexington, Kentucky environment is not conducive to going and competing for national championships? If the money is there, we know it's there. What about the Lexington environment is preventing Kentucky from getting back to prominence? Because I've been around Cal a long time. I was a Memphis fan simultaneously as a UK fan. Born in Kentucky, grew up in Memphis. Calipari basketball is all I know. I got a master's in Calipari offense with a minor in John Robic operations. That's what I know. So I'm intrigued because everybody knows, it's fair to say this, that John Calipari and Mitch Barnhart, that they weren't best buds. What were the differences in philosophies between Mitch Barnhart as an athletic director and John Calipari as a future Hall of Fame basketball coach? How could their philosophies be so different? And I'll say this, when we talk about Calipari talks about player first, that has to be one of those philosophies where there have to be differences. That's what has to be uncovered, is what kind of resistance did Calipari run into when trying to lead his players first program? What kind of resistance did he run into with administration and potentially the president's office in his last few years at UK?
Look, it's been rumored that a big part of the downfall of Calipari at the University of Kentucky was administration and being able to maneuver the way he wanted to maneuver within that athletic department. He always had somewhat of a unique relationship with the athletic department, but that has shifted more and more as we had gotten closer to the NIL era. That's one thing. The second thing is some of the players, specifically some of the key players, maybe even some All-American players, were handled differently than how Calipari wanted them to be handled. Can't really go into too much more detail than that, but that's the rumor and part of the conversation, is that a very important player was handled differently by the program, the athletic department, some of those that are very supportive of the athletic department, and that altered the relationship between Calipari and those that were very heavily invested in the athletic department. So that's two things. Three, he'd been there 10 plus years, and things get a little stale after 10 years anyways. So I think some of it was just tenure, being able to shift, been together a long time. Last and finally, and Jarmon, we always talk about this, the Big Blue Nation is one of the greatest fan base in all of college sports. They've endured some very challenging times on the football side. They'll support volleyball. They'll pack bars for volleyball championship, baseball, runs, so on and so forth. But that also doesn't help sometimes too when you need to make a statement about piss poor results on the playing field. Because at the end of the day, UK athletics is still a business, and the customers continue to consume. And so I think it slows down at times the process of moving on when it's time to move on, because the consumers are still there and they're still consuming. So I think sometimes that creates a challenge. Great fans like the University of Kentucky fans still support even when it's a product's not worth supporting. And that can be challenging when you're trying to move on to bigger and better things and evolve the program.
Really, you said a word that really got my antennas extended. Speaking of consumption, the 2026 March Madness is on track to be the most watched tournament since 1993. 10.3 million viewers through Elite Eight, 9% year-over-year increase from last year. The UConn Duke, 13.4 million viewers. It peaked at a little over almost 19 million viewers live. Record-setting rounds. First two rounds saw 11 million viewers on average, the most watched round of 32 since 93, according to Outkick. New college football, college basketball ratings off the chart. However, there's still this disconnect, there's still this loud, dispirited voice talking about, and NIL is going to ruin college sports. The viewership says differently. Do we have any concerns going into the next season about the structure of college sports and just basically the business of sports, particularly college football and college basketball?
No, I don't have any concerns. We talked about this.
We have. After playing football season.
We talked about during the football season, the invisible hand, Adam Smith, free market thought, free market economy. And at the end of the day, at the college level, the fans have decided they like movement of players, transfer portal. They like NIL. Some of the players like NIL. Guys that traditionally would probably try to make that move to the NFL, they don't fit that game, have opportunities to make good money at the college level. And it works. Like, it's working. And people are watching. Now, you're always going to hear some folks that are critical of it. And usually they happen to be some of the loudest ones, right? They're the loudest ones. But to your point, the ratings, they say something, they tell a completely different story. The product's being consumed more now than it ever has. Some of it may have nothing to do with NIL or transfer portal. Some of it might do with, we got less people watching cable, more people watching Netflix and Amazon and ESPN apps, and the way these mediums are being distributed to the people. So maybe some of it's that. But yeah, it's working. And I think it's going to continue to work. We've speculated different paths for which this thing might shift in the future. And I think it will continue to change and continue to morph into something that's going to drive the sport forward. But yeah, it's working.
I think it is working. I think the legislation that is being introduced potentially after break, 5 years to play 5, right? The Tuberville's thing, I don't know if it's going to happen. I think it's smart. You got too many older people playing, living for college athletics. Like, you got to stop having the 26, 27, 28-year-olds play. Like, a 28-year-old versus an 18-year-old, that's a whole different ballgame. You're physically not compared at all. I think the freedom of movement is good in a one-sense situation. I think freedom of movement for 4 straight years, I think that's bad. I think it's a detriment to the kid. You can't job hop like that in real life. Are your credentials changing over? How are you getting a degree at some point? These people are going to college for a reason, and most of them, if not all of them, will need some type of piece of paper that was going to help them get a job. Calipari's been the voice on that. He's all about one and done and freedom of movement, but transferring 3 or 4 times makes the coach's job harder. You don't even have this much freedom of movement in the NFL. Like, there's a contract. So I do think there needs to be some contractual obligations there. So, like, if you say yes, your yes is your yes for a period of time. And I think some of these kids are being taken advantage of by brother, sister, uncle, cousin. Creating an environment where those kids are learning. Even though you're 18 and you're a man or a woman, you are a baby. You don't know nothing when you're out of high school. You know nothing. Zero. What you think you know, you should throw it out the window because you're going to learn a lot more in the next 4 years. I think surrounding those people and putting an infrastructure there is going to be a big step. I think that's where we go. NIL is great. It gives people a real tangible opportunity to get money that's generational for some of these people early in life, but help them, right? Because you got to balance it all. If you job hop all the time, people are going to see that and they won't hire you, right? There's got to be some things that you teach people to grind it out and persevere. But I do agree with the structure where it is now. Like, shoot, we'd all live to live in it.
All really good points, Jay. Morgan and I, we've had these conversations. Build something special that kids don't want to leave. Build an infrastructure that allows them to invest and grow their money, invest into the Fayette County, the statewide community where they have no interest in ever leaving.
100%.
That's the goal. The goal is to help them flourish. And if you help me get integrated from an investment perspective at 18, 19, 20 years old, I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay and I'm going to be a part of those investments. I'm going to put my roots down and build those connections and those ties. I think that's where we have to get. I'm going to double down on that. Instead, you look at some universities and you look up and you see the football coach at the state capitol, basketball coach at the state capitol, athletic director lobbying with the Congress, flying out to Washington, D.C. You look up on Instagram, there's the athletic director and he's with Senator such and such. What are they doing out there? If I'm at another one of these schools, you know what I'm showing a recruit? Hey, your basketball coach, your football coach, your athletic director, they're out lobbying against your best interest right now. I'd pull those pictures up, put them in a collage and have them send them off. Say, look at these. What do you think these guys, what do you think they're talking to Congress about? They're telling you one thing, and then on the other hand, they're actually working against you. These kids and the adults around these kids, they're smarter than you think. There's people out here that are helping these young people connect dots. The tradition, you can't rely on the tradition anymore to be the recruiting piece. Like that helps. You know, the fan base is a massive selling point, the infrastructure, the Rupp Arena, the campus, those elements. But you have to be progressive. You have to build something, and you got to sit down and you got to get in the room with people. Guess what, Morgan? You got to be willing to sit down in the room and give people in the room a voice that maybe don't look like you. They don't look like your board. They don't look like your president. That have different experiences. And you got to let some of these people tell you what would be compelling, what would be enticing to see the University of Kentucky stay relevant in this new space. Well, I don't think that we're having those conversations. When I go on these websites and I look at these boards and I look at these decision makers, I know some of them great people, encounter them, but should they alone be the people that are deciding the future Champions Blue and how Champions Blue is going to stabilize the university? Calipari did something else while he was here. He brought a coolness factor to UK. The alignment with Drake, right before Drake got really popular, his little slogans, his marketing, his little quips, all of that stuff. He brought a brand. You could argue that it was as large as the UK basketball brand at its peak.
Yeah.
And that was a very, very incredible combination of having that Calipari swag with the UK tradition. And then you start to dabble and you bring people like Drake in. You start having Hall of Famers. You start having who's who coming and sitting courtside for Kentucky basketball games. We got to get back to some of that coolness factor. We took a step back here recently with some of these hires that weren't as sexy.
Look, Jeremy, story time. 2011, University of Kentucky. A lot of people know it was an NBA lockout year. Jake, I don't know if you're still around for this, but it was the lockout year. Summer practice. We had the Oklahoma City Thunder.
It's incredible.
The Oklahoma City Thunder, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook on campus working out. There's pictures and stuff somewhere of Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook throwing the football at the old Nutter
Randall
complex. There's pictures and videos out there. Same thing with Rondo and some of those old Boston Celtics. There hasn't been another NBA lockout, but the point is Calipari's brand and the University of Kentucky's brand, they fit. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about. I'm not saying Mark Pope needs to build an alliance with NBA YoungBoy. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying this. University of Kentucky is supposed to be relevant in culture. That's the way it's supposed to. The same way that it has all this history and the same way that people tear up when they show old videos for our grandparents. They need to be culturally relevant today in order for them to get the best players and the best recruits and start winning championships.
One of the coolest things ever. I ran into Drake in Houston around the time that whole partnership, what was it?
An alliance.
Yeah, he played on campus that year as well.
Played on campus, talked to him at Sky Bar, was down there with D Mills, talked to him at Sky Bar. He went to a concert. Drake he's been in Lexington at least 5 times because I ran into him on 3 different occasions during that time period in which Cal had that relationship rolling. UK basketball is pop culture and college basketball, and they got to make sure moving forward with these hires, with the decisions that they're making that are impacting the student athletes, that they're checking multiple boxes, not just these tradition boxes, but they're looking at how these decisions are going to impact and how our media can amplify that, how our letter winners can amplify and share some of those messages as well. Because we're all in this together. So when we're sitting here, we're having these constructive criticism talks. This ain't just pointing fingers. This is saying, hey, we got some people over here. We got some soldiers over here that want to be activated, that are invested in this thing, that want to see Kentucky basketball be that monster that we're accustomed to. The hire of Mo Williams and the commitment of his son, Mason Williams. Mo Williams been a former NBA All-Star. I was giving people buckets on campus with Mo Williams on that NBA 2K9 when he was with the Cavs. That was prime LeBron years too. Definitely know who Mo Williams is.
I thought you were going to say you were giving people buckets on the JC, and I'm like, I never saw your big ass out there once.
I made cameos over there occasionally, Jake, but after I had that one cross-training mishap back in Memphis hooping, I said, let me retire these basketball shoes. So I sat down somewhere. So what do we think about this hire with Mo Williams?
Mo Williams, a different Mo Williams, a running back, former Kentucky athlete, former Kentucky player. We got a different Mo Williams. Look, if he can relate to players and he can bring a perspective that's going to attract NBA caliber guards, NBA caliber wings, then yeah, it's a great thing because that's what it's going to take to get back to winning games again, is attracting those types of players and that style or that brand. What I think they got to be careful of, there was a clear adjustment with the roster building to try to get some guys that were physical enough and strong enough to handle the SEC. It almost felt like it was an over adjustment in some ways. And there's been a lot of conversations around, did he acquire the right players to fit what he wants to do offensively? I guess I would caution the same thing could happen with this point guard thing, Jake, that you're mentioning, and some of this ball handler thing that we're talking about. You got to have them. That was clearly a weakness. But you got to have all of those things, right? You got to have the physicality, the athleticism, the ball handling, the shot creation, the bigs, so on and so forth. I hope Mo Williams has a lot to offer.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. He's got a grassroots system background. But 2 of the top 10 recruits were Kentucky natives at one point. Tyron Stokes, Tay Kenny, and now Bill Self's coming back. Like, how does he help bridge the gap with Tyron Stokes as we land the plane on what 2026 recruiting looks like? Can he make an impact? Can he move the needle? That should be interesting because if not, you're left with one recruit for the 2026 signing class. And you got to have a mix, right? The teams that are in it right now, they have at least a star freshman or a freshman that contributes minutes. Illinois got one. UConn's got one, or sophomores that were highly rated recruits. Arizona's got Koa Pete, and Michigan's got a team of dudes. So you got to have at least a little bit of star power coming from that class to mold with your older generation. So hopefully he can bring a little bit of that star power and juice with him. But time will tell. That's what Jason Hart was supposed to do, and that's what Alvin Brooks was supposed to do. And at the end of the day, this is where you're going to see parallels between Pope and Calipari. Calipari had guys that could go in, do all the dirty work, and then Cal would swoop in, and he would be the guy you want at the closing table.
Yes.
Is Mark Pope the guy you want at the closing table? That's the question no one knows.
That's a natural segue into talking about Orlando Antigua. He's been one of Calipari's lieutenants for a long time. He's going back to Memphis, twice at UK. Now, finds himself under Brad Underwood at Illinois, a team that's knocking on the door for a chance to win the national championship. Brad Underwood, at his media availability earlier this week, he talked about the role O has been playing in recruitment and just locker room. He said Antigua can bring humor into serious situations, which just make it easier for players to be able to consume information. He talked about how Antigua knows everybody, walks into a gym and just knows everybody. And for Illinois, what has put it over the top for them this year is they have several international players that they have absolutely hit the jackpot. One of them being Big Z, a guy that we're familiar with, but Antigua and his brother. You know, Antigua being locked in because of these guys and those relationships being locked into the international circuit now, which has Illinois knocking on the door for a national championship. Brad Underwood also talked about camaraderie, team building, how Antigua has been instrumental in that. He also talked about how much that they invest in learning and getting to know their players, and that they're heavily invested in personality testing to understand the kind of people and personalities that they're getting to make sure that they have a locker room of like-minded guys that are able to be coached by coaches who have personalities that are congruent with the recruits that they're bringing in. What are you guys' thoughts on Underwood sharing that nugget this year?
That sounds like it's next level coaching, relationship building. Sounds like they're doing the things it requires to build a team, build some trust, build relationships, and it's proven to have some strong results on the court. They've had a great run in this tournament, and you don't have a run like this unless you've got a very strong culture and the people are playing for one another.
Yeah, I mean, it's behavior economics 101. You got to know the person before they care what you know. You got to show them that you care before they care what you know. And so for them taking those moments, we have a thing that we do at work for all of our employees. It's called organizational analytics design, and it's a personality assessment, very much akin to like a Myers-Briggs. And so my leader knew me before I came in. He knew that I was really a big picture thinker. I wasn't good at small details. So he talks to me in big picture concepts. He doesn't talk to me in minutia. And you change and you grow and you develop. We talk about character strengths a lot in our work. There's an organization called VIA in Cincinnati. We've all heard of Gallup strengths, right? Understanding the strengths of individuals is vitally important when it comes to, are you adaptable. Maybe you're the spiritual guy on the team, or maybe you're the guy who appreciates the beauty of what's going on and building those dynamics so that you know how to pull something deeper. If all I say to Jeremy every day is, "What's up, man? How's it going?" We dap up, and that's all I know about Jeremy. That's terrible, right? The deeper the coach knows the individual, the more they're willing to run through a wall. Whether it was Rick Petrie or Steve Brown, those guys got to know us, right? They asked us questions. They joked. They cut up with us. They were always trying to find the next level connection. That's what I appreciate about my time at Kentucky, where those coaches did try to spend that time. Rock Oliver is my guy. Rock knows Jake deeper than most people because he was there through a breakup and all these things. Rock knew me and how to help have these conversations as I grew older. I think that's what everybody's looking for. They're looking for that father figure that when I leave home, that mom and dad aren't there always, that I can have somebody who's dependable and I can trust on. And I think that's what Brad's doing up there. They've been successful. They ran into a buzzsaw when they played Kentucky last year in the tournament because that team was hot at the right time and trying to beat Tennessee 3 times in a row. That's hard. So they end up losing. You get to this point and you see, oh man, that team's basically back together. They added a few additional pieces. And look where they are now. They're sitting at the Final Four, chance to beat UConn. Go Illinois, go Illini, because we don't want UConn coming anywhere near our 7th national championship and getting close to 8. We don't need that. We need them to back off, and no one likes Dan Hurley anyway. But UConn fans, we all did last year. We all wanted him to be our coach, I guess. Hopefully Illinois wins. They'd be
Did he get a call? Get a call? Just rumored.
We got a call. So
he definitely should have got. If he didn't get a call, then let me know where I can exit the stage.
I'm putting that out there.
I don't know.
He may or may not have gotten a call.
I tell you, the frustration. When my buddy swears that Donovan got the call.
I don't know if Donovan got a call.
Well, my buddy swears by it. So who knows?
We're going to have a new AD making decisions here soon in July. So Godspeed on that one.
Is it a new AD? Is that the title? Or is it CEO?
True.
Marketing and titles tend to matter. Jake, one of my favorite reads here. I got this when I was in grad school at UAB, The Speed of Trust. I don't know if that's Speed of Trust. And that's what a lot of coaches in this current time period in collegiate athletics, that's a skill that only a few guys have and a few women have. That ability to build meaningful relationships with people in short time periods. You don't have 4 years, 3 years. It comes natural with time. But when you're trying to simulate this thing and speed it up, how an Illinois has done it, and some of these other programs, the people that have these titles, performance development people, a microscope needs to be put on them. Because if these people aren't coming in and they're not impacting and having meaningful simulations to build these relationships quickly in the spring and in the summers, and these people are frauds. So let me just be honest about it. They're frauds. Coaches need people like this more than ever. People that have these skill sets to be able to come in and take a look at some of the offseason regimens, splitting up your teams and doing group activities and these competitions. These things matter. It's real. There should be metrics to that besides which team is winning, which team's pushing the band around the track the fastest. Real surveys that are showing that I left the summer with more respect for my teammates, with more respect for my coaches, with more love for my program, with understanding from an activation standpoint. I understand what my mission is here and what my role is here. When I walk out of this building, I'm able to be an actual person, not a commodity. In order to do these things, you have to have really talented people. Yeah, you do. The schools that are doing really well right now, it's not an accident. Especially when you're seeing them show up multiple years in a row. You're seeing IU show up 2 years in a row on the football side. If you're not paying attention to what Kurt Cignetti and the team at IU is doing, you're dead. It's all about roster construction there. It's all about the right fit. Moving into football a little bit, Nick Marshall came out to his first spring practice wearing silver cleats. And Cignetti said he never got his ass ripped like he did when I got a hold of him. He said, you're going to go back in there and you're going to change the cleats into red or white. Because that's what we are, black. Like, that's what we wear. We don't wear this custom stuff. We're a team. Right? Like, star athletes aren't used to that. There are rules to these things. There's levels to this. If you're going to fit the Indiana culture, this is the culture that you're going to fit in. We paid you a handsome amount of money. These are the non-negotiables. Fit in with the team, which is crazy, which is awesome. Auto swap the silvers for the golds. Came out looking like Michael Johnson.
Hey, Booby plays it. It's black Nikes. Water bug.
Hey, them black Knights on my feet, water bug.
I think that's the best line in any football movie. You know who that was in your locker room telling their backup. You can picture that kid who was doing that.
That boy had that Sharpie.
His first name was Derek. His last name was Locke. That's D-Lock.
Yep.
Shout out D-Lock.
Oh, man.
Oklahoma's finest.
Man, that boy never had that leg injury. That was a brutal leg injury, boy. Thing was tough. 1 yard line, dives for the goal line, and then ACL, MCL, PCL, meniscus. Still came back and towed that rock, but man, he was on his way to a special season when that happened.
Let's talk about this spring practice. Kentucky football, they're on a vibe right now. This coaching staff, a lot of big-time recruits, they're getting on campus. coming to visit, check out Will Stein, Jay Bateman, just the whole staff. We thought the staff had a lot of YAC, young, hungry coaches. And we're seeing it. So a lot of stories coming out. Kenny Minchey seems to be having an incredible spring. A lot of excitement around him. A lot of highlights coming out. I'm expecting to get out this weekend, check the team out, see Kenny throw the football around. What are you guys hearing? What are the things that are going to translate to getting ready to play one of the toughest schedules in college football?
I'm hearing Kenny Minchey fits the profile for the type of quarterback that Will Stein likes and wants to be in his offense. Accurate, ball out on time, a leader, distributor of the football, smart. Those are some of the traits that Will Stein looks for. I've heard some snippets from Will Stein on how he likes to structure his spring practices, maybe less breaks, sessions in practice. I find that interesting, how he's managed the team this far. I've heard about mixing up the players. You're not doing the typical 1s and 2s and 3s, but mixing up the 1s and 2s. I find that interesting because players that you think could contribute don't get an opportunity. I like that he puts an emphasis on that because there's nowhere to hide. It gives everybody an opportunity to prove that they're going to be a contributor. So those are the few things that I've heard.
Real quick, I've heard there's no depth chart. Are you buying that?
No.
I ain't buying. No, do you know who number one is? Right, like you know where you are. A couple things that I have seen that they've put out that I like. I like Joe Sloan's energy. I love. There was a clip. He's like, "We're throwing go balls today," and then there was just ball after ball after ball. And you got a kid in DJ Miller that could be special. I really think. But you saw him do that thing at Cincy. Like he's got a chance. I really do think he's got the build. He's got a little bit of juice to him and speed wise. So I'd be interested to see that. I love the coaches' interaction. I watched Jay Bateman, the whole interview he did when he was mic'd up, talking to the linebackers and safeties and how you fit in those moments. And I like the coaching style that I'm seeing from the guys. David Pollock's interview, if you haven't caught that podcast with Will Stein, is a great listen. I think the most important thing is the juice, man. The juice is just high, and that's attractive. There's a reason why Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning, those guys got juice. Saban had juice. Like the guys who are doing it, Fignetti, he's got juice and swag. Like the guys at the top of the game, you go there and you're expecting to get coached hard. You're expecting to get your butt ripped from time to time. You're expecting it to be competitive. And I think he's trying to bring that to a new environment. I've heard some good stuff about the offensive line, which is good because they brought in some big-time guys, some big-time pieces.
Yep.
How can they cohesively come together? And I think Cutter Leftwich might be the star of the staff so far.
Cutter, there's a lot of momentum there. You mentioned offensive line. Saw an interview, Logan Stenberg, former UK All-American offensive lineman, what he had to say about Lance Hurd. Offensive lineman says he's big, smart, got light feet. Get excited to hear guys like Logan put that stamp of approval on dudes. He ain't doing it for clicks. He means what he says when it comes to these dudes in the trenches. He knows what it looks like, and he seems to really like some of these guys in the offensive line group. So hopefully that's something that they're able to continue to build on. But no, you're right. Like the energy from these guys, Joe Price at the wide receiver position, looks like he did a really good job coming in and evaluating his talent. Really like that they renewed the contract with DJ Miller because, you know, it cost them to get him out of St. Louis to come to Lexington. So they came in, did a talent evaluation on this wide receiver group. We're able to add some dudes to this room in a short time period. I think that they're doing everything that they can with the situation that they have. I would love to see them find a way to get a few more players after spring ball. I think that there's going to be another open period, if I'm not mistaken, where they could potentially lose guys and potentially pick some more guys up as well.
There's people trying to graduate, right? Because there's only one portal, but if you can graduate, if you're a junior and you're taking extra classes, you could put yourself in the grad portal, and that's open at all times of the year. So I think you'll see grad transfers as well.
So you can have a few LLMs operate and you're taking classes at community colleges all over the country, getting all them credits, be ready to come to Lexington. So yeah, man, just really good stuff there. The early buzz, these guys, their energy is notable. I like some of the new technology. Have you guys had a chance to look to see the new Jugs machines where it's able to basically kind of throw the whole route tree and put the ball in different positions? I'd like to see that a little bit more like up close, like that technology. But the videos that I've seen, it's cool to see the advancements with some of the technologies, with some of the bags. I've seen some of those, not at UK, but the bags that move and they're not just static. So good to see that software. I don't know if it's Oracle, Newt, that's responsible for writing some of that code, but some of these companies, they're helping to bring football and football development along, where some of our dummies and mannequins have been static for who knows the past 100 years or so.
Hey, offensive tackles are big dummies anyway, so they don't move very fast.
Without him, though.
Hey, no, that's your best friend. I can talk bad about him. No, I think, Morgan, I'd love to know your thought. I think the GoPro on the helmet, being able to see eyes, that's got to be great for a quarterback coach and Sloan and Stein to look at that and see where their read and progressions are. I think that's got to be one of the cooler things I've seen them do.
I think players can lie with their head with slight movements a little bit. I'd be more interested in the camera actually looking at their eyes.
Like a meta?
More looking at their eyes than relying on head movement, because a guy's head could be in this general direction, but he could be looking at his peripheral. I want to see where a guy's eyes are, not where the hell his head is. These dudes aren't owls in the pocket. Like, show me them eyeballs.
I think it's a good enough touch that I even shared it with, see if we could figure out how to do it at the high school level. It's important when you go into that next level of quarterbacking. And it's not just quarterback, it's linebacker, it's safety, it's corner at times. Have a good sense of where eyes are as part of your training. When you dig into the depths of quarterback play and you start thinking about progression reads and things of that nature, I think they probably use it for that purpose to some degree. I assume they'll use it for some marketing purposes as well. Maybe there's some ROI that they can create in that regard. But I think it's a cool touch. I think it's cool that they're doing that. Quarterbacks usually don't have to worry about damaging the equipment in practice either, which is good. Got to keep those guys healthy and upright. I think it's a great touch.
I like that they are treating it like a game scenario. So all the coaches have headsets on throughout practice, which is really cool. You got to be able to move so much faster. Nick Roush was talking about, he was at practice the other day for KSR, and he was like, in an hour and a half or 2 hour practice, had 3 breaks.
Yeah.
That's all gas. Like, you got to be able to communicate clearly and quickly. So I do like that they're practicing those things, and I'm excited to get up there for the spring game. Shout out to the K Club doing some stuff for the alumni for the spring game, which I think is pretty cool. I'm excited to be around like-minded people to watch the game, pick it apart, have conversations about what they do show, what they don't show, obviously, but for another time. I do think there's a lot of hype and a lot of good hype, because when national media is talking about you, about the juice that you're bringing as a recruiter and where Kentucky football could be in 5 years because of where Stein is today, obviously you got to win. But I do think the national media has their eyes on what Will Stein's doing.
The hope of being able to score more than 10 points a game in SEC play, it gets me excited. The last 2 years have been tough as a fan, as an alumnus, to watch it just struggle with being able to move the football in SEC play. Just demoralizing, the investment that you make into your game day planning and prep, and your only chance of winning a ball game in the SEC is holding the team under 14 points, which in this decade
ain't happening.
It's not happening. So I've seen some good publicity also coming from Jay Bateman, where there's been some uncertainty about the impact that he will have as a play caller. Texas A&M, I think we had talked about maybe a couple years ago, maybe have had some of the play calling duties removed. He's a guy statistically at Army, but also at Texas A&M, very well known for running a very aggressive defense with a high havoc rate with some of those advanced metrics. I think he is the elder in the room. I think he's 52 or 53 years old, so not very old. Got some good experience, but sounds like he's going to be multiple and not just defenses as well. I thought it was interesting. It looks like they hired the nickel coach of the nickel positions a game within a game. I've looked for every quote, every article that I could find from a respected head coach, respected offense coordinator, specifically talking about third down and nickel strategy. Bill Belichick, he's provided some just incredible insights on just how important that nickel position is. So apparently Jay Bateman and his philosophy agrees that in the SEC, you need a nickel down specialist helping develop at that position. Despite overall being a young unit, great energy, I'm excited to see the product they're going to put out on the field this fall. I'm hopeful we see progress from last year in a lot of different ways, and these guys are able to put together another offseason with a good recruiting class, because this is not the football team where one class changes your fortunes and makes you a contender. They need a couple years to build on the roster that Stoops left them.
Yeah, and I think the jury, look, just because there's been spring football propaganda circulated amongst the fan base, circulated through the media, doesn't mean that there's still not a lot of questions. I still got questions about Jay Bateman. I don't know if those questions are going to be solved in backpedal drills in spring practice. I don't know if we're going to get those answers in that sort of scenario. So the questions are still there. I still think it's a really young staff, and that's good in a lot of ways, but that could prove to be a work in progress in some other ways. SEC experience. I still think this staff doesn't have as much SEC experience.
They do not.
I'm not saying they can't do it. I think they can do it. I think they've seen the league. They've probably watched it on tape. They probably talked to people that have SEC experience. They seem like a very prepared staff. But this league is different. The way you play in this league and the way you have to manage your roster week to week is different. Even different than Oregon. Even different than some of these other places these coaches have been. So the questions for me are still there. But I'm optimistic because I hear a lot of really good things from Will Stein, from different coaches are part of it.
Until live bullets are flying, you don't know. When we get to August 30th or whatever the official home opener is, and then you follow it up with Alabama the next week, you're going to know pretty quick what this team's about. And, I think the biggest question, obviously with Bateman, how's he going to call the game? We can do that running back room. You got a guy that's coming off injury from Texas and Baxter, who has not really been prominent in any videos. How are they working him in? You got Jason Patterson's back. He showed a lot of skills catching the ball, going on the backfield.
Like Patterson.
I think Patterson needs some shine and some run. And then you got the kid from Oklahoma. So what's that room look like? Devontae Manziel still there, Manziel. So, what kind of production can you get 1,000 yards? Can you get 1,500? Can you get 2,000 yards out of that room? Like all purpose. Like that, like if you watch Oregon's team, they're going to want just like 1,700 to 2,000 yards coming out of that backfield. Like, can those four guys do it? Can the offensive line hold up? If you really start to study tape on Oregon, you've got to have the balance. You won't get the stupid balance where you've got to get balance, got to achieve balance. You can throw this thing around the park, but you've got to be able to run the ball to set up the bootleg pass to your tight end. I'm not saying that buddy from Northern Kentucky, Willie Rodriguez, is Sadiq, but he's got some skill. How can you use him in the tight end? He's good. He's a really good inline tight end, right? Using the talent you have to open up those things, I think will be complementary. Those are the things you're going to be looking for offensively, kind of from a defensive mindset. Can they establish the run to open up everything else?
No, I agree. Nobody's written that article yet, gone out to practice and done an evaluation. I don't think that anybody really has that eye to be able to go out to one practice, watch it, and say, hey, this is where they're really efficient. Here's where some deficiencies are. You can't do that at a football practice unless you've been a former player, you've been a former coach, to be able to stand over on the sideline and watch all 22 and speak and write confidently about what you've seen.
Yeah, you know how this conversation goes. In this podcast, we should just avoid it so that we don't get shadow banned.
Let me restate that. 90% of former players can't go out and stand on the sideline and watch an all 22 live and step away into a podcast booth or go sit down and write an article that has real substance to it. Analyzing, that requires incredible insight. Like, probably you have been a coach after you've been done playing. You've been a play caller, defense coordinator, offense coordinator, to be able to have that. So I'm not confident that there's a media person that's going to be able to go out to a practice and write a constructive article analyzing a spring football practice where they're not tackling to the ground. Yeah. You have to be up in the cherry pick.
Canopy.
I moved my season tickets so that I can watch from the all 22 perspective because I'm a nerd. But like, even for me, you hear people spewing things into your ears and you're just like, you just want to be like, no, you're wrong. Like, it's actually boundary blitz, cover 6 with a robber on the back. Like, you can't explain that to the normal fan. And like, this is the round concept that beat that, yada, yada, yada. And there's like, you're an idiot. I'm like, okay, I'm not making up these words. It's true play calling and dynamics, but those are split decisions. And they're probably not repping the same play over and over and over again. So you can't pick up the dynamics of that. And even scouts, when they come to evaluate a person or a couple people, they're watching specifics. They're like, hey, he can get in and out of his break really good. They're only watching specific things. So it's like, to be a talent evaluator of a team, that's extremely difficult for anybody.
Maybe that's why the guy took the job, because he was really good at calling plays, decided he wasn't going to call plays.
He was going to sit back and let other people do it and evaluate them on the job they're doing. Is that what you're saying, dude?
The thing that made him attractive
was the play call.
About the position.
You mean it wasn't because that was Kentucky alumni?
No, that's important. Look, he's a K Club guy. That's important. We know a few of those. I'm talking about the guy that was the mastermind play caller and quarterback.
High-flying offense.
For high-flying offense is not going to do those things in this job.
To Jake's point, getting them running backs out running rail routes, catching balls off of play actions, leaking the backside. We really ain't done in a long time. Wrapping up UK basketball season. A lot of questions. I don't know where Mark Pope goes, but I know this much. One recruit at this stage is concerning. Having to replace 2 of your top scorers, and you haven't done that yet. At this point, on the scale of 1 to 10, Kentucky basketball right now, it's a 10. Catastrophic levels. DEFCON, whatever the highest DEFCON number is.
1.
DEFCON 1 is what it's at. You went and got a decent point guard. You haven't replaced your scores. It's grim. So,
portal opens Tuesday, April 7th. It'll be busy.
Real quick, a family that I care about a lot in the Kentucky LetterWinner community is the Johnson family. Really good relationship with Dennis and Derek Johnson, 2 highly rated Kentucky football players, great people. Jasper Johnson, the son of Dennis Johnson, including finishing up his freshman year. That outspoken minority has really pissed off the Johnson family. Derek Johnson in general, the uncle of Jasper Johnson, who's come out on social media on several occasions to talk about the sentiments that have been shared towards Jasper in public as well as in private and online settings. Is there anything that a university can do in scenarios like that where young players getting a lot of negative sentiments in the online space? Any advice that you guys would provide for current future athletes when it comes to on-field performance and reading the reviews of our talented and insightful naysayers
You have to have a social media presence. You got to feel to be able to connect with the fans if they're going to get NIL. You got to show personality. So you got to do it. It tells me a lot out who you are, how you react to that. I get a negative email telling me I did something wrong. I'm like, okay, I self-reflect. Self-realization plus self-actualization equals the opportunity to flourish. So I have to realize in those moments, did I suck? Did I give my best effort? And then like I got to actualize the situation. How loud is it? Is it one person? Is it 1,000 people?
Right.
Is it 500,000 people? Then I can flourish and I can move on. We talked about Gen Z having some thicker skin. In this instance, it's loud, it's annoying, it can hurt. There's people that say shitty things all the time, unfortunately. I tell my son all the time, he's like, kids are being mean, they're bullying me. I'm like, they're not bullying you, they're just being mean. You have two options. You can either leave and walk away, or you can stand there and say, I'm not for this, but I'm going to still be here and do my thing. You've got two options. You can either stand on business, or you can leave. That is what it is. Resiliency is a learned trait. You have to learn how to overcome pressure. You have to learn how to overcome situation. And if you don't want to do that, everyone's got their option to pick up their ball and go home. I'm not discounting what was said about him at all. And I read what Derek posted. Like, as a family member, we stand on business as a family. That's how I feel. I'm going to tell you about it. But Jasper is the one that's accountable for his response and how he does that. I would hope that Jasper comes back, he puts on 10 to 15 pounds, and he comes out and says, look, I can do this. He's 160 pounds soaking wet. He's got to build and grow. And not everybody's one and done. Grow into it if you got the opportunity. Or if there's another opportunity where you see a better fit and you want to get away from the hoopla of Kentucky, because the brightest lights shine on Kentucky. There was an article that said college basketball brands start with Kentucky, Duke. Literally, that was the article. It's 5 Kentuckys, then Duke. So, like, you are in the brightest era of college basketball. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Yeah.
I'm in on that one, but it's tough.
Gen Z, despite everything I like about them, one of the things that I noticed on the management role is that, and the data supports this, Gen Z is not very resilient. And there's a lot of work being done right now behind the scenes to figure out how can we build resilience with this group, especially in healthcare, where there is a ton of turnover. What are your thoughts on Jasper Johnson's situation?
I think it's a really difficult situation. I've chosen post-playing and having not gone through the exact same thing that Jasper's going through, but to be in a position at the university that gets its fair share of scrutiny. I think the difference clearly is my family's not from Harrodsburg, Kentucky, or from Central Kentucky like the Johnson family is. And I wasn't a legacy to the University of Kentucky as a player. Part of me wants to say, Jasper, you just can't play at the University of Kentucky because the fan base will treat you like any point guard or any combo guard that plays for their team. Not Jasper Johnson, the kid from Kentucky. The consumers, at the end of the day, don't really care that it's Jasper Johnson. They want to see their team win. I've seen that play out many times over my 15 years of watching Kentucky sports. There's not a big long line over the last 10 or 15 years of players being in prominent roles, being from this close to the university and being super successful. On the hoop side, there's been very few. Reed Shepard, to name maybe is one that, but I mean, he's even from Laurel County. Darius Miller, like there just haven't been a lot of players that have been really successful. Now, on the uncle side, the uncle's role is always going to be protective. And they're going to be protective of their family. So it's always going to be that. Like Jake, like you said, there's always going to be some stand on business. But I think he's got to know better too, right? And I would say this to him, to Dennis, like they know when it comes to Kentucky sports, recruiting promises, I'm sure they were promised some things in recruiting. Our Pope said what he had to say to get him and said he was going to be taken care of. I'm all for you protecting Jasper and feeling like you stepping in to protect him. I'm all for that. But y'all know what time it is. They knew that this fan base can be this way. It's disappointing. I feel for Jasper. I'm like you, Jake. I think if he stays, he could be a champion, potentially, depending on what happens. Schembechler reference. But I also think he might need some fresh air, too. And go out and to kind of reimagine what his career could be elsewhere. And if he does decide to do that, he's got my support. I'm all for it. I want him to be very successful. I am not the guy that thinks the only career you can have is at the University of Kentucky, because that is a lie. That's a tough situation, Jeremy, because like you said, Dennis, they're one of our own. Jasper's one of our own. But you don't always get treated like that. We've seen alumni think they're going to come back and support their old team, and they don't get treated that way.
Now, college players are getting paid now. Now that you're getting paid, there's an expectation that you're going to produce. When the starter goes down and you got to get shuffled around, there's going to be an expectation that there's not going to be a lot of drop-off, that you're a highly rated, 4-star recruit, and that you're going to be able to step in, be coachable, and potentially help salvage the season. Are you going to be as impactful as Lowe? No. But you're also not going to be a detriment. So to see him in his natural role in the exhibition against the Purdue Boilermakers, his 15 points, 3 assists, things started off well for Jasper. And then as we get into the meat of the season, he wasn't ready to take on those extra minutes. He just wasn't. Whether it was a strength, I think there's an IQ, like a basketball IQ element there as well. I would love to see Jasper come back if his mindset is that I sucked or he sucked this year, because I've looked at myself after my redshirt freshman year. It was a 4-sack campaign my redshirt freshman year. There were some games where I was ashamed of what I put on film, ashamed of what I put on tape. Couldn't wait to get to the offseason, to watch film, to get in the lab, to get into the workouts with Mark Hill, push the band around the track and redeem myself, right, and come back out. But any good competitor has to be willing, kind of like them players back in the 90s. You hack somebody, foul somebody, instead of waiting on the ref to come and point at you. See guys just kind of raise the hand. You remember that? You remember that era, the raise of the hand that was making that foul? That's what I want to see, man. I want to see these guys now as they're being paid. And now as you're coming into a Kentucky basketball program that is storied, you got to be accountable. You can't hide from this thing. You got to lean all the way in. I've only seen Newt, since I've been following Kentucky basketball my whole life, I can tell you, to this day, if I see Miles Simon or Mike Bibby, I got something for them, right?
Facts.
Like, they traumatized me as a child, but not ever come across. Great guys, I'm sure they're great, but they got to pay for this trauma. But there's been a lot of Kentucky boys that have had to transfer that just weren't good enough to play at Kentucky. And they bowed out with grace. They acknowledged that, hey, maybe I'm not good enough here. And they transferred, went to different places. Some of them still ended up getting a shot at the next level, making it to the NBA. But their journey was just different. The pressure here is different. The fan base is not going to be easy on you because you're a Kentucky boy. It's not racism. There's been a lot of white boys that have come here, weren't good enough, transferred, left, went to the West Coast to try to get on the field, went down a level to try to get on the court. That's just part of it, man. It's the nature of the business when you're trying to step up to the plate to be on the premier stage in college basketball, Kentucky basketball. It's an elite stage. You got to work to stay on that court. I've only seen one Kentucky basketball player. A very loud minority of the fans were very upset that she got recruited over and had her scholarship taken. And that was on the women's basketball side, Kenny Brooks' first year. And I'm hopeful that we will never see a situation like that occur again. I think everybody knows there's a different element there. He's got to get in the lab. He's got to get in the film room. He's got to get in the weight room. He's got to get with Mo Williams this offseason and try to develop into a legitimate point guard. He's got a lot of work to do. It's not racism. It's not anything but producing. You're not getting on the court because there's a lack of trust between your capabilities. I promise you, Mark Pope is not putting you in the game because of any reason except for the fact that he don't think that you can help the team win today.
Because if he thought you could help him win the game, he'd have you on that court. That's for sure. And look, you said something, and I just want to make sure we clarify, clean it up. And maybe you mean this, so I want to give you the opportunity to amend. It's not that Jasper's not good enough to play at Kentucky.
It's not that.
He's a blue chip player, or at least has blue chip pedigree. He may not be a blue chip player quite yet. He's good enough to play at the University of Kentucky, but some of it's about fit, timing, the team. There's a lot of pieces that have to fall in line. Some of it's about his maturity, his development, his skill set, and where it is today and how it fits. There's a lot of things that have to go right for Jasper Johnson to be a successful player at the University of Kentucky. I don't care if he goes and be successful somewhere else. It doesn't bother me. I want the kid to be successful. I want the family to be successful. If he could do that at the University of Kentucky, that would be great too. But I do think he's got to go find an environment that's going to help him be at his best. And I think that for all of these players, whether they're families from Mercer County, Kentucky, or if they're from wherever, they got to go find a scenario that's going to help them be successful in their career. And that's what I wish for him. And if that means you take less vitriol from part of the fan base, then good for you. I'll be happy that you don't have to deal with as much of that mess as a lot of players have to deal with.
And when you're a Kentucky kid and you're playing at Kentucky, there's nobody that wants to see you be more successful than the Kentucky fan in every corner of this state. These people have watched you compete in the AAU, in the high school circuit. They know everything about these guys, man. Like, I remember going and watching Darius play his senior year in high school and like competing against, these guys when they played in the state championships and stuff like that at Rupp. They want to see Kentucky kids be successful. Like, this isn't personal. It's personnel, as my guy Freddie Maggard would always say. It's not personal, it's personnel. You got to put the work in to do your part. And if you can't, then we need to separate. It's that simple. You got to produce.
Yep, because these kids are making a lot of money.
And look, your uncle ain't going to save you with them Facebook posts. Like,
that's true too.
Like,
fact. Hey, that might be some therapeutic release But that ain't gonna change your circumstances.
Remember when his Uncle Derek stood up for him and put something out there? He'll remember that. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you got to go produce, bro. That's what shuts all this down. You got to average 15-5. You stroking that three like Chandler, facilitating. They running the offense through you. You hustling, diving for balls. They'll love you for the rest of your life.
That's
Jeremy. There's no shortcut to production. I'm gonna shoot a little bit in practice. I'm gonna handle it a little bit. I'm gonna do a little 1-on-1, 2. I'm gonna do some 2s, some 3s, some 5. Like he's got to know that. I've never seen him practice or what his routine is or his diet or like I don't know any of that stuff. You got to evaluate if it's making a shift like that. You got to look at yourself first and see, is there something you could be doing that's going to help you get over the hump? Now, that would be the first question. That would be the advice I gave him. Make sure you're doing all of the things that you are functioning day to day like a pro. And that's one of the things we always hear Calipari talk about. Is he a gym rat? That's when it's midnight, everybody else is trying to hit up 2 keys or whatever else. Are you in there bouncing that ball and shooting the ball? Because you can't get around that. I can tell you who was. Booker, Ulis, Murray. Them boys was doing that because Cal talks about it. So are you doing all those things? I bet he would say he's got more he could do. Maybe that's not Derek's point. Maybe that's not his point. Maybe that's not, if you held the mic to Dennis, maybe that wouldn't be Dennis's point. Their point would be that they were getting wronged by the fan base, maybe. I don't know. But for the kids' sake, the goal should be get him successful. And the goal should be get him to the league where he can change his
Jake, where that dog at? That's what this boils down to. You talk about Kyle, I just took all that stuff up. Talk about guys in there working on their craft in the Joe Craft Center at midnight. Kyle said that he would ask Bam, man, why are you in here like this? So he said, Bam pulled a picture of that single wide trailer that him and his mom lived in Pinetown, North Carolina, pull it out his wallet and just hold it up.
Julius Mays was the same way. I had a guy in grad school that I was really close with. Julius came down here to help. Julius never left the craft center. Like, we go over there and hoop. Like, they would be like, Jake, we need bodies. Like, I'm not worthy to step into that place and hoop at all, but I did. There was like, you either grind or you don't. My story is I grinded a bunch and that didn't always equal playing time, and that's fine. I loved the grind. You have to either be about it or you don't. And you look at people like Kobe Bryant as the ultimate grinder, the guy who always grinded and it turned into success. It will make you better. And it may not be for the sport you're playing, but it could be in 10 years and 15 years when you're successful, whatever you're doing. And that's my advice to him, my advice to you. Is if you grind, it's going to pay off. It may not be short term. It could be in 15 years. But if you keep at it, $40,000 salary doubles, and then it doubles again. And then you can have your wife not work if she doesn't want to. Like, all of those things matter. But you have to be willing to put in the work. And if you're not, that's your choice.
This was fun, fellas. Get back in the booth and dissecting the fraud. Get down into the layers. You went to the Great Carmel High School, y'all right, dissecting pigs. We was dissecting frogs. That was the budget that we had.
I purposely missed that.
I wouldn't dissect
biology class on purpose.
This was fun. Get back in the booth, talk with you guys.